Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Gia. I'm a 28-year-old lady who still lives in my mom's basement. And today I wanted to do something a little bit different and also a little bit creative because I have a lot of books to read this year and I'd really like to get it going. I have said previously that I have a priority TBR that I need to get cracking at this year, and it's not going as well as I thought. But there are some books on here that I have had on my TBR for long enough that I find myself to be either disinterested in reading them or just not wanting to read them, period, even though that I said I would. So I thought that I would do something a little bit fun where I did one video where I told you these are all the books that I need to read. This video is dedicated to, okay, I read 2 chapters, 25 pages. Do I want to continue reading this? It's like, all right, I cracked the spine. Do I want to keep going? I have chosen 3 books for this experiment, 3 physical books that I have in my possession. I am moving in a little over a month, so if these are books that I don't want to take with me, I would like to know now before I pack them. So the object of this video is not necessarily to read all 3 books, but explore whether I want to read these 3 books, because I find myself once again looking at all of these books going, I really don't want to, but do I? I have them. I said I would, but enough time has passed that I really need to revisit if I actually want to read them. So I'm deciding whether or not this is actually going to work out or not. So at the end of the year, when I have all of these unread books I didn't read, I want to be able to look at the list and say, okay, I tried that one, I cracked it open, and I didn't want it, so get rid of it entirely. I feel like this is something that we as readers have to revisit a lot when there's too many books in the world that we need to read. We might not get to everything that we want to read this year, so we say we'll get to it next year. But what if we don't get to it next year because we weren't in the mood for it, and then suddenly 5 years have passed and we haven't read Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss yet, but I promise I promise I will get to that one. You find yourself with all of these unread books that you remember wanting to read, but do you now still want to read them? And that's what I'd like to explore here. So again, for the purposes of this video, I will be doing 3 books in this exploration where I will be reading 2 chapters, 25 pages, tab in and say, okay, where am I at? The first one being Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. This is a YA. I think these are all YA actually. This is about a girl who was 6 when her country was invaded and her mother was killed, and the new leader keeps her alive. And I guess she is Queen of the Ashes or Princess of the Ashes. Okay, Daenerys Targaryen, go off. The next one, I don't want to speak too soon, but I am feeling good vibes about this one. But 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. I am most drawn to this because it is about a set of triplets and they all have different powers. And the powers were very interesting because one of them is an elemental, the other is a poisoner, and the other is a naturalist, which I all thought were very interesting powers that are all not elemental. I find myself getting kind of tired of solely magic systems dedicated to the elementals. I'm tired of earth, wind, and fire. I'm actually tired of it. So this actually seemed really interesting magic systems wise. So that one I have good vibes about. I also have good vibes about A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I've heard this is like Beauty and the Beast meets Cruel Prince, which I believe Cruel Prince is kind of Beauty and the Beast inspired. Whatever. This is also the largest book of the 3, and I actually have all 3 books in this series. Those are the 3 that we are going to be talking about. More like me talking to myself about whether or not I want to actually continue reading them, because if I get to the end of chapter 2 and decide, you know what, I'd rather gouge my eyes out, I might decide that. So this is not really going to be a aspiring DNF video. This is just me trying to trim the fat off of my TBR because I have a lot of books to read and I would like to get to all of the ones that I actually will enjoy. So these are the 3 that we're going to talk about. It is midnight. I'm going to go to bed. I am going to probably start reading the 3 Dark Crowns is probably what I'm going to start with first because that's the one I feel the best about. So I will check in with you guys as we go on this little reader experiment. Maybe this will be how I go through my experiments, reading through my old backlog list of books anyway. This might be a new little experiment for us, but for now we're just going to start with the 3. And I will check in. Hi, please excuse the way that I look. I am a little bit sick, but I just read the first chapter of 3 Dark Crowns and I did not want to stop, but I forced myself to because this I had a very good feeling about this book, and I was right. So just to briefly kind of explain a little bit, I honestly could see myself doing a plot summary of this, but I say that for lots of things and I never find the time. So I'm just saying this is a fun candidate for that. Very, very briefly, what we have going on here is that every generation there is a set of triplets that is born, and they are all queens in their own right, but one of them has to kill the other two. And in order to do this, they are trained in different houses so that they're born and then they're shipped off to 3 different places. One of them goes to a house of poisoners, the next to a house of elementals, and the next to a house of naturalists. And then one of them has to kill the other 2, and then that queen rises, chooses a prince consort who doesn't really matter, he's just there, and then the queen has another set of triplets and the cycle repeats. So when you first come into the story, you meet the first girl. Her name is Catherine, and she is the poisoner queen. She grew up in this house surrounded by people who are more like her foster family. They're not actually related to her. They are related to each other, but she is not related to them in any way. So the main mother figure that she has in this story is named Natalia. She is the matriarch of this story, and she has like 3 or 4 siblings in this group that they all kind of report to each other. And Natalia was very close to Catherine's mother, Camille, the mother of the triplets, this last set. So it is said that the previous queen got her triplets early, and she was only queen for about 16 years. So she probably died when she was in her early 30s. They also said she was perfect and amazing and a thick booty queen who poisoned her sisters over the course of a week until they died in their sleep. So I was like, that sounds cool. I want to know more about her. So the back of the book tells you that each queen is equal heir to their crown. Talks about Mirabella, Arsinoe, and Catherine, who we meet first. And they say Catherine is a poisoner who can ingest the deadliest poisons without so much as a stomach ache. I just read the first chapter, and that's not necessarily true, which I do enjoy kind of an unreliable not always a narrator, but an unreliable narration. So you first come into the story, and Catherine is standing on a pedestal, and she is being inspected by Natalia and the others because she is having to go to an event tonight called the Gave Noir. It is a ball and a feast where there is dancing and eating. And the eating part is that all of the food is poisoned, and the more poisoned food that Catherine eats kind of translates to her power in a way that it's not quite gluttony, but tolerance, because the entire point of her is that she is a poisoner queen who can ingest poisons and not die. Over years and years of ingesting all of this poison, she is 16 years old and she is gaunt, she is frail, she gets sick really easily. So they're kind of trying to show off this facade that she can, withstand all of this poisoning because she's 16 now, and they're about to go to do the whole queen thing where they all have to kill their sisters. So her mother before her and lots of queens before her were poisoner queens. So the main ruling house this entire time for the past however long has been the poisoner house. So Catherine is living up to a legacy that she's not sure she can meet, where she's kind of questioning herself over whether it is even possible for her to stomach all of this poison. And it's like a stuffed hen with hemlock poison, and they have to eat candied scorpions and a soup with rosary peas. Oh, like a feast of mushrooms, of poisonous mushrooms. She just wants to get it over with. She just wants to get this entire process over with. She dances with a boy who is the nephew of Natalia, and she likes him immediately. And they tell you that the guy who becomes the king consort doesn't really matter. In fact, the fathers are never named for the triplets whenever they're born. Nobody actually knows who their fathers are because it doesn't matter. He doesn't count. This is a matriarchy. She dances with this boy who she likes. They dance like 3-4 dances, and she really likes him. He is wearing a pin on his shirt that is a semi-alive scorpion, and she has to stop herself from leaning too far into his chest because she's going to be too close to a literal scorpion. Something that Catherine does that Natalia also does is wear a snake as an accessory, and Natalia wears a black mamba, which I find to be interesting as someone who had a hyperfixation on watching Animal Planet growing up, because black mambas, aren't they really fast? Like, aren't they quick? They're not exactly snakes that like to laze about. So I was a little bit confused as to why she would pick a black mamba as an accessory. Catherine, on the other hand, chooses a coral snake. So that one I think is a bit more like lax, I guess. I don't know. Black mambas are really quick. They're known for being fast. So wearing one as an accessory was a little confusing to me, but I like the vibes. I'm here for it. I'm really, really here for it. I actually had to stop myself from continuing to read this. I'm really intrigued. I'm really enjoying myself. The chapters are split up into locations. So when I read the first chapter, it got me to page 25, which is where we are switching locations. So the first 24 pages are all about Catherine. And the reason why I stopped there is because I really didn't want to meet the other two sisters yet. I really wanted to pause and say, okay, this is a good stopping point where we were introduced to our first character. This is the first taste of what the author wants us to see, is this first character who is marketed to us as this 16-year-old who has been ingesting poisons since she was born, and the book is telling us that she can do it well. The end of the chapter is when Catherine faints because she has ingested too much poison / venom at the Gave Noir. She just wants to get the process over with, and she eats too much, and she starts to pick really poorly. She starts very smart about her choices in what she wants to eat, because the entire feast continues as she continues. So she's setting the pace of saying like, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to eat this. And then she's going to keep going. And it's, like I said, it's kind of an exercise in gluttony, but with restraint because it's poisoned. So she starts with the hens with the hemlock stuffing because she can eat the meat that's furthest away from the hemlock stuffing and it won't affect her as much. It's like the less poisoned parts. And then she goes to the candied scorpions because all of the venom is in their tail. So she eats like the pincers and the stuff that's not the tail. And then she starts to mess up a little bit because she goes for the stew with the rosary peas. And the reason why this is bad is because when it's cooked in, the rosary peas are cooked in the stew, it gets everywhere. So even the broth is poisonous. So she picks a stew, and then she goes for the mushrooms, and she picks a mushroom at the end that's really big and is very poisonous. I don't remember which one it was. So she starts to pick poorly because she just wants the process to be over with, and everyone's like cheering her on and saying like, oh, keep going, keep going, keep going, because this is really their show of strength before she goes into the challenges to kill her other two sisters. And at the end, she does faint because she's ingested so many poisonous things that she could very well die if she were, I mean, she would have been dead long before if she was a normal person. They really want you to root for her because she is in this long line of succession of other poisoner queens. So I'm wondering, because she is presented to us as kind of a weaker successor, if we are going to see her growth over the story, whether something's going to happen and she like gets a higher tolerance to poison somehow, or if she and her sisters are going to band together and change everything. And what about that boy that she danced with? And I gotta be honest, I really hope that there isn't a love triangle element. I'm starting to like it more when a love interest is introduced from the get-go and you kind of know that that's who it is, like that's who they're going to end up with in the end. I hope that there's no love triangle, as I read Divine Rivals most recently and I loved it, partially because one of the things the story did was introduce Iris and Roman from the very beginning, that they were love interests from the beginning. They were saying, I hate them so much because they're my rival in the workplace and I hate their stupid cute face. I want to kiss them so bad, but also I hate them. And I really liked that. So I'm really hoping, even though this book was written in, I believe, 2016, I'm hoping that it doesn't fall into the normal contrived bullshit about love triangles that were so present in the early aughts and late aughts and early 2010s and blah blah blah. I'm into this. I'm really excited. Anyway, I'm gonna go now because I don't know if I have a sinus infection or a ear infection or a UTI. I don't know what I have, but I'm a little sicky and I need to go to bed early because I have to work tomorrow. So, okay, bye. Hi, I'm still sick, but I wanted to give an update on the last book that I wanted to read for this challenge, which was A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And I have good news to report. I got to the first 25 pages. I stopped. Actually, page 25 was the start of chapter 5. So this is already very fast paced. And I can tell you a handful of things already. Number one, that I'm interested in, that I do intend to continue reading the book. But our main character's name is Ren, which this book was published in, I believe, 2018 or 2019. 2019. So the name conventions are going to sound very familiar. Our main character's name is Ren. He is 18 years old. He has turned 18 327 times. He is doomed to repeat his 18th year, in which every year he turns into a massive beast. And the entire point, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, is that his guards have been tasked every year to track down a new maiden for him to bring to the castle, and then he tries to get her to fall in love with him before he transitions into a beast. Now, everybody else around him is not stuck in time, which is something I found very interesting. So just he himself is cursed to repeat this year of his life. So everybody else around him has gotten older, died, gotten hurt, etc. It's not like a time loop. He's just stuck in his own time. So at the very beginning, you find out that he's been 18 327 times. And over the course of all of that time, his parents have died. He has gone from 6 guards to 2. So it's like deserted. The kingdom has like no people. And now they've resorted to his main guardsmen going into the real world, which is where our heroine comes from, breaking into the real world to steal women off the street. And that's where our second character, Harper, comes in. So she has cerebral palsy and her dad is dead. He has made several deals along the way with some bad actors, and her dad owed a lot of money, and then he died, but that didn't mean that his debt died with him. So Harper and her older brother Jake are kind of accomplices in trying to steal money back from people, or at least steal money from people so that they can pay off her dad's creditors, her dad who is dead, and her mom is sick and requires a lot of medical attention. And Jake is always asking Harper to be the lookout. So in the very beginning of the story, Harper is currently acting as a lookout for her brother, and it's set like she has a timer in front of her, and if the timer gets down to the timer has run out and she needs to run and leave him behind. Harper sees 2 people walking down the street. It's a guy and a girl, and the girl is either really drunk or the guy must be very funny, Harper says. But then the girl slumps over and Harper goes, I'm supposed to be a lookout for my brother, but I really should go save this girl. So Harper takes her shoes off. This is important because of her cerebral palsy. Her left foot drags. So she takes her shoes off and then takes off after these people, and she picks up a metal pipe and beats the shit out of the guy who actually is the guardsman for the prince in the fantasy world. So the guardsman, his name is Gray, because of course it is. Gray is so baffled that this girl dared to attack him that he ends up teleporting them back to the fantasy world. She ends up tumbling to the floor after having beaten the shit out of this guy with a metal pipe. And there's the prince right in front of her. She doesn't know who this guy is. She was just taken from winter in Washington, D.C., and suddenly she's in this castle and it's warm and she's sweating, and she's like, that's weird. I was just in Washington, D.C. and it was hot. And she breaks away from Gray and Prince Ren and like tears down the hallway. She ends up finding a orchestra that is playing itself as like ambiance music. So she's like looking around going like, oh, that's weird. Like there's an orchestra happening. No, the instruments are playing themselves. So they're enchanted instruments, which Beauty and the Beast retelling, and she's walking around going, there's nobody here. So this girl finds herself in the stables, steals a horse, but can't get that far because the horse is too well trained, and stops when someone tells the horse to stop. I found this extremely funny because so often I am used to having been introduced to women characters who are either the one of two things. They're either extremely feeble and kind of naive and dumb and don't know what's happening, or they're the bad bitches with a plan who always know everything. They're so calculated. They know everything down to the wire. What I found that I liked about Harper immediately is that she is pragmatic in a way that she's like, okay, I just gotta run and keep running and I'll make it work. And she finds a horse and she just goes, I'm gonna steal this horse. I don't know where I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna steal this horse. And I like it when someone finds themselves in a new place and their first reaction is not to either fawn or try to kill everybody assassin style. This is simply a disabled girl with no shoes that thought she could steal a horse in a fantasy world that she doesn't really know is a fantasy world yet. And the guardsman comes up to her and is just like, I'm going to take you to the castle now and I'm going to get you cleaned up and get you some food. And she's just like, no, you're threatening me. And he goes, I'm literally offering you food so that we could get you inside and we can talk. And I liked that. Sue me. I thought that was funny. You know what? Hell yeah. You know what? Sure. I'm intrigued by this. I think that, of course, there's a lot that can happen. I've only read the first 25 pages, but the first 25 pages have been entertaining and very fun. So I'm going to keep reading A Curse So Dark and Lonely and see where it goes. So I had already talked about this book, but for some reason I was stupid and didn't unmute my mic when I recorded it. So I had about 17 minutes of not that great of footage, to be honest with you, of me talking about this book. And I was muted the entire time because when I am streaming on Twitch, I like to mute myself so that I am not like, you don't hear me tippy tappy in and you just hear like the game. So I tend to mute myself when I stream, and I forgot to unmute myself when I recorded the video. But anyway, the camera angle is different. It's just because I was going through my bookshelf. I wanted to talk about Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. I did not like this book. This was the first book that I picked up for the reading challenge, and I immediately did not really like it. It is about a girl named Theodosia who is 16. She was the princess of her nation, and her mother, the Fire Queen, was killed by the leader of another kingdom. He is the Kaiser, which is something I immediately didn't like, is that Kaiser is a very loaded word because it means emperor in German. And I didn't really like that immediately. Like, first and foremost, I was just like, that's kind of a loaded title to call somebody, because you immediately know that they're evil, number one, but number two, it comes with a lot of like real life baggage. So I didn't really like that much. Also, Prince's name was more Scandinavian. Actually, his name was not Prince, it was Prinz, Prinz. And then his name was spelled, I believe it was pronounced Soren. It was S-O with the slash through it. I don't know how to actually pronounce that as a letter. R-E-N. I know it was Soren, but the O has an alt code typeface. And so immediately I looked it up and I was just like, okay, so Kaiser is this really loaded term that means emperor in German, or German and Austrian rather. But the name of the prince was different. And I don't know if anybody else is like me. It bothers me when authors pick random names for stuff, because the use of the word Kaiser is very purposeful. Laura Sebastian used that, is that her name? Used that on purpose. She used that name on purpose. And so it bothers me when people don't do, and I know that this is nitpicking, but when people don't do adequate enough research to naming conventions in a story, if they're going to be taking inspiration from something that is a historical reference, or at least has historical baggage, like the way that Kaiser would. So having something that has more of a Scandinavian, or rather like a Danish spelling, I was a little teensy bit confused by that. I don't know if the author knows something I don't, but I was just like, those are two different types of white people. So anyway, that was one thing that immediately, like, that was just something that annoyed me. But what I didn't like immediately is that we open up to this story and you have our princess, who is, sorry, I'm sick. She is at the palace. She is kept basically hostage in her own kingdom. She's called to the Kaiser, and the Kaiser tells her, like, hey, there's this guy that we found. You want to come and meet him? And he is the guardsman of her, one of the last guardsmen of her mother, the former queen, who they killed. So this guardsman, you later find out, and by later, I mean after a page, you basically find out that this is Theodosia's father. So the scene that we get henceforth is very bad in that it carries no weight, because in the first 2 chapters, you're telling me that this girl is 16. She is a hostage in her own country, taken over by a foreign adversary who killed her mother. And then her father, who she has not really thought about at all, he was the one of the guards of her mother, and they haul him in, and they don't know who he is to her. That to them, I mean, if they do, they don't say. If they do, they might say later. But within 2 chapters, you have this girl have to kill her father as a mercy kill because he doesn't want to give up the rebels. And you know that this is going to be the inciting incident in which she decides, I'm going to go find the rebels because my father was a part of them and now I need to go find them. And it really makes me wonder why she didn't seek them out before. And I understand like living in fear, but I can't really understand why the introduction of this father character within the first 20 pages that she hasn't really thought about this entire time. I don't know why introducing him and deducing that he is your father based on vibes and then having to mercy kill him. I don't understand how that is the inciting incident for this 16-year-old girl to suddenly decide, I'm going to help overthrow this evil government. So immediately I was like, okay, this is going to be dumb. The third nail in the coffin that I did not really appreciate is the very clear racial insensitivity that this is exhibiting. On page 13, you got a view from Theodosia's perspective of what the room looked like when the Kaiser called her in, and it was a sea of pale blonde Calovaxians. Yeah, he's the Kaiser is the leader of this. Like they're blonde, absolutely. Well then, the name of the queen or the Kaiserin, it's her milky eyes dart up through sparse blonde lashes to find mine. That's weird. That's like a really sickly way to describe the queen, right? And then a paragraph down. This is on page 14, mind you. His clothes are tattered and blood-drenched, and his face is a mottled mess of broken bones and torn skin. Beneath the blood, he's clearly Astrian, with tawny skin, black hair, and deep-set eyes. His dark eyes search mine as if he knows me, imploring, begging, and I rake through my memories. Who could this be, and what does he want from me? I have nothing for him. Page 14, page 15, and she is presented with this dude that, like, she's like, what does he want? And she realizes who he is at some point, that he's he was one of the last guards of her mom, and he was like out on the run helping the rebels. But even then, like, she doesn't really have this realization that it's her father until she like looks at him for more than 2 seconds. He was my mother's most trusted guardian, and according to just about everyone, my blood father, even though my mother couldn't say that for certain. Immediately, the bringing on screen of this guy who may or may not be her dad, and then she has to kill him, and I just know she's going to decide, like, this is it. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm going to rebel against this government and become a rebel spy. Like, I knew that was going to happen, but the very clear line of between the two, between the Kaiser's people and between Theodosia's people, is the racial ambiguity of the Astrian people that are Theodosia's people. As I get older, find myself to be very trepidatious. That's an SAT word for you. I find myself to be very careful when I read books, and I read these character descriptions of authors that are describing their characters as tawny. In fact, that's a whole stereotype about why you shouldn't use that word. It's like repeating a word 3 times in a paragraph. It's like a cardinal sin of writing a story. But this was written in 2018. So let me look at it from the view of that this was when this whole phenomenon was beginning. And I can only say from this place in 2025 that we do look back on things like this and criticize it for being insensitive. But also, I can also sit in this place and say that we have done better. Something that a lot of people don't like when they call stuff like this out is that when authors write novels and include the word as a descriptor, they include the words tawny, tan, caramel, They are essentially writing people of color in a way that is ambiguous enough for you to romanticize them and sexualize them, but not enough in a way that when the fan art comes out published by the author, the person is undeniably just a tan white person. And that's something that I believe that we have made big strides to get away from. So for all of those reasons, I decided that this is not going to be for me. And I hate to leave you in suspense, but I decided to end the video here because this was already getting kind of long. This was a pretty great experiment for me to do. This will help me definitely get through the few physical copies that I have not read up until this point. So really this helped me crack the spine on at least 3 books that I hadn't started yet. And I can go ahead and rehome Ash Princess, and I'm going to finish 3 Dark Crowns and A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and then decide what I want to do with them after that. But I will be taking these with me on my move to Washington. I have a couple more books in my possession that I should probably do another version of this reading challenge, and I'll do that eventually. But I will go ahead and end the video here and update you on how I feel about these books. Maybe I'll give them their own video as kind of a part 2 to this reading challenge. Definitely let me know if that's something that everyone would be interested in, or if I should just lump this into the like the reading wrap up that this will all end up. Anyways, that is all from me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me if you got to the end of this video. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you can find me on Twitch and Twitter. I don't know yet if this is going to be the last video that I record in my mom's basement, but the next time you see me, I might not be in my mom's basement. I think I actually have to film my video going through all of my books and why I'm decluttering certain books. So actually, this is probably the second to last. Remember to drink water and be nice to each other and exude kindness and empathy with everything that you do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!